Today marks 20 years since the events unfolded in the case that's now known as the infamous pizza bomber.
On August 28, 2003, in the suburbs of Erie, Pennsylvania, a pizza deliveryman named Brian Wells robbed a bank with a time bomb locked around his neck. He said a group of men accosted him and forced him to carry out the heist. After delivering the money, he would receive clues to help him disarm the bomb. It was one of the most diabolical bank robbery schemes in history, known by the FBI as collar bomb, major case number 203. It did not go according to plan. Wells, picked up by police shortly after the robbery, never had time to find the clues he needed. Investigating the crime after his grisly death, the FBI ultimately discovered that Wells was not, in fact, an innocent victim. He was merely the first co-conspirator to fall in a bizarre trail of death following the crime. Jerry Clark, the lead FBI special agent who cracked what became known as the pizza bomber case, and Erie Times News investigative reporter Ed Palatella, who followed it from the beginning, tell the complete story, from the inside, for the first time. Timeline of pizza bomber events. The pizza bomber case took more than 7 years to investigate and prosecute, with FBI Special Agent Jerry Clark as the lead investigator. Here is a synopsis of some of the events in the probe, based on court records and other sources, and as compiled by Ed Palatella for the Erie Times News. Brian Wells is killed when a bomb locked to his neck explodes after he robs the PNC Bank in Summit Town Center, a shopping plaza just south of Erie, Pennsylvania. Wells tells state police before the collar bomb goes off that 4 black men forced him to wear the device and rob the bank. Investigators later determine Wells was lying. That night, federal agents search Wells' house on Loveland Avenue in Mill Creek Township. They find nothing to indicate the collar bomb was built there. Robert Pinetti, Wells' friend and co-worker, dies from what is ruled an accidental drug overdose. Investigators pursue the lead about the black men by searching the Erie apartment of a black man whose girlfriend said she knew Wells. The man is never charged. William A. Rothstein, Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong's former fiancé, dumps 1,040 pounds of debris at Lakeview landfill. Rothstein calls 911 to report that the body of James Roden, Diehl-Armstrong's boyfriend, is stuffed in a freezer in Rothstein's garage. He blames Diehl-Armstrong. Erie police charge Diehl-Armstrong in Roden's death, alleging she fatally shot him at her East 7th Street house in Erie sometime before August 28, and then helped move the body to Rothstein's Upper Peach Street house, south of Interstate 90, in Summit Township, near Erie in southern Erie County. Police and federal agents question Rothstein about the Wells case. He says he may have used the payphone that was the source of the final phone call to Wells. Diehl-Armstrong, who suffers from a bipolar disorder, is transferred from the Erie County Prison to Mayview State Hospital, near Pittsburgh, for a long-term psychiatric evaluation in the Roden case. She is off limits to investigators while at Mayview because of her mental state. Rothstein, 60, dies of cancer. He says nothing about the Wells case to investigators who question him on his deathbed. Diehl-Armstrong pleads guilty but mentally ill to third-degree murder in Roden's death in Erie County Court and is sentenced to 7 to 20 years in a state prison. Diehl-Armstrong is transferred from Mayview to the State Correctional Institution at Muncie. The main investigators in the Wells case, Jerry Clark of the FBI and Jason Wick of the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, interview Diehl-Armstrong. She talks about Rothstein but refuses to answer questions. Clark and Wick interview Diehl-Armstrong at the state prison at Cambridge Springs.
So I was told that when Brian Wells arrived on August 28th, he arrived and was looking to be paid for the pizzas. Okay? Now, also...
Who told you that?
Who do you think?
Barnes?
Yeah.
When are you going to learn that Barnes was making up shit? Why do you want to whitewash Brian Wells? That's what I want to know. First of all, he was a co-conspirator, and when you're a co-conspirator, they can't be a death penalty case anyway, and he was a co-conspirator. I don't know why you want to believe these goddamn asshole losers,
Here.
and you don't want to believe...
Listen.
I would never... category, period. I am not some evil genius who was greedy and wanted some guy that looks retarded to rob a bank from me. I didn't even know this guy, and you're an asshole if you think otherwise.
This guy was innocent, and you guys wanted to avoid the death penalty. I know this.
First of all, you are totally wrong. I am not you guy. And if you say otherwise about anything in the movie, I will sue you. I didn't have anything to do with the goddamn crime.
According to the FBI, she says she killed Roden to silence him in the Wells plot, and she says she never spoke in detail about his killing because she feared it would implicate her in the Wells case. In the summer of 2003, she says she gave Rothstein kitchen timers integral components to the collar bomb and was a quarter of a mile from the bank robbery site when Wells was killed. Diehl-Armstrong first raised the possibility of immunity during the interview. She kept talking and never ended up getting a deal. She would later dispute the FBI's version of her statements. Clark and Wick interview Floyd A. Stockton Jr., Rothstein's housemate at the time Wells was killed. He says Rothstein and Diehl-Armstrong were involved in the bank robbery and bomb plot because they needed money. Clark and Wick interview Kenneth E. Barnes, Diehl-Armstrong's fishing buddy. He says Diehl-Armstrong, before Wells was killed, solicited him to kill her father to stop her father from spending her inheritance. Barnes meets with Clark and Wick. He says he, Diehl-Armstrong, Rothstein, Stockton and Wells met August 27, 2003, to review the bank robbery plot. Barnes says he and Diehl-Armstrong watched Wells through binoculars before he was killed. Wick and Clark meet with Diehl-Armstrong. She gets upset when told of Barnes' comments and denies being with him on August 27 and 28, 2003. She claims Rothstein framed her. Clark and Wick meet with Barnes. He gets upset when told of Diehl-Armstrong's denials, calling her a liar. Federal agents search Barnes' then residence in the 600 block of Perry Street in Erie for bomb-making components and other items. Diehl-Armstrong would talk to Wick and Clark a total of 8 times. This was the date of her last interview. Along with her personal lawyer, Lawrence D'Ambrosio, who encouraged her to talk, she goes on a ride with Wick and Clark in Summit Township. She points out where she was throughout the day when Wells was killed, according to the FBI. A federal grand jury, which has been meeting in the Wells case for close to 2 years and was about to have its term expire, indicts Diehl-Armstrong and Barnes on the felonies of armed bank robbery, conspiracy to commit armed bank robbery, and using a destructive device in a crime of violence. The grand jury names Wells and Rothstein as unindicted co-conspirators. The U.S. Attorney's Office unseals the indictments. Stockton is not named in the indictments. He reaches an immunity deal with the government in exchange for testifying against Diehl-Armstrong and Barnes. U.S. District Judge Sean J. McLaughlin rules Diehl-Armstrong incompetent for trial, largely because of her bipolar disorder. He orders her to undergo more mental health exams in the federal prison system. Barnes pleads guilty before McLaughlin to conspiracy to commit bank robbery, as well as using a destructive device during a crime of violence, both felonies. McLaughlin sentences Barnes, then 54, to 45 years in federal prison. He agrees to testify against Diehl-Armstrong. McLaughlin finds Diehl-Armstrong competent to stand trial. Diehl-Armstrong has a cancerous lump removed from her neck and is later diagnosed with glandular cancer that originated in one of her breasts. At a court hearing, McLaughlin reviews a physician's report that gives Diehl-Armstrong 3 to 7 years to live. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Marshall Piccinini, said he plans to proceed with the trial. He said he would have considered halting the trial if the medical report had given Diehl-Armstrong less time to live. McLaughlin sets a trial date for October 12. Jury selection begins in Diehl-Armstrong's trial. After deliberating 11 hours and 30 minutes over 2 days, the jury convicts Diehl-Armstrong of all the charges. McLaughlin sentences Diehl-Armstrong to life in prison, plus 30 years. The federal prison system has no parole.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave your comments below, and like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss our next video.